I am delighted to be in a room full of product marketers. I hope everybody's a product marketer, but we'll get into that in a second because I feel like this shouldn't be like PMM, it should be like Product Marketer Anonymous. Like, I'm Jim, it's been 12 days since I've changed the buyer personas. We should all introduce ourselves. No, seriously, there is a group of us out here that I think we're just underrepresented in the world. And this presentation for me is the way that I communicate what product marketing does to executives, to my team, when I go through the hiring process with people, because I just feel like it's one of these misunderstood acumens within an organization. And so I came up with a framework. That's what we do in product marketing, right? So I think it's time that we start marketing ourselves, right? Because I just feel as such we are misunderstood. That said, this was my calendar today. This is my calendar today. What you'll notice is there's no like travel time to Brooklyn. There's no presentation. So I have to thank Nathan who organized this for inviting me to come here. But I didn't get invited to speak until yesterday at about noon. And my calendar yesterday basically looked like this as well, right? You all seen this calendar before. So I kind of started on these slides around 6 p.m. last night. So forgive they're kind of plain. They're not my typical like more exciting slides. I don't even have a template, so you're product marketers. There's no marketing in this other than this is a concept that I've come up with over the past couple years to help explain these things. All the content that I have, I like to expose to everybody, and I would encourage everybody here to expose it to each other. This slide deck will be available on if you DM me or you email me. Or you connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a blog post that's about this. So this isn't like I came up with a concept and said, great, I'm going to present tomorrow. This is something that I've actually blogged about and thought about for a long time. So those are my caveats. If I say the wrong things on the wrong slides, I've never given this presentation. So I will start with that. I am a VP of product marketing at a company called Cockroach Labs. People love and hate the name. They never forget it. We are a database company that's located here, headquartered here in New York City. We are a database that can survive every evolution. And as people evolve to the cloud, they need to land their data in the cloud along with their applications. Well, we have a database that will evolve from legacy systems into the new, and you just can't kill it. So I love the name personally because I think it actually is a great brand for us. But I'm also a venture partner at a small VC firm that's based in San Francisco called OSS Capital. We focus on open source software and taking open source projects and building companies around those. I'm a developer turned marketer. Long time ago, I have a computer engineering undergrad. I coded for a very long time, but I was always the person that was on those teams that had to get up and explain things to people. So I very naturally kind of gravitated towards, I was a product manager, but I was a horrible product manager. I was really good at getting up and talking. So they put me in front of people. I ended up becoming a product marketer because, for me, in my heart, telling stories is what we do as product marketers. I think you just saw the last two conversations. If it's through emails, talking to people about their issues in a very private way, or it's through pricing, that is a value conversation. And I think everything we do is about telling a story and knowing that in here, in our hearts, I believe allows us to tell really great stories. And so as a developer, of course, I'm doing product marketing in tech and around a database, but I know it well, right? I'm also a startup-aholic, so again, the other side of this is I work in startups. That's all I do. This is my 8th startup in a row. Either I'm a glutton for punishment or it's the only place I can actually be. I've only worked in a public company once. It was because the company I was at actually was fortunate enough to go through that process of going through an IPO. I lasted 2 months. I'm not a large company person. So again, finding your home, finding where you belong as a product marketer, I feel is incredibly important because if you could tell the story from here, it's going to make a whole lot more sense. And then finally, I'm a product marketer and I'm proud of it. I hope I've kind of expressed that so far. All right, so I did want to, so again, when you get tasked with giving a presentation the next day, you think like, okay, great, how could I fill some time? Filling time, audience research. So let's do a poll. Actually, it's persona development because you're product marketers. So how many people here work at a startup? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's about 30%, 25%. Okay, great, cool. How many people work at a public company? How did this not balance out? Like, I guess there's an in-between place, or people are shy. We'll get back to that. How many of you are in B2B marketing? Okay, wow, that's whoa. So this should be B2B Product Marketers Anonymous, obviously. And then okay, so for this one, let's have everybody stand up, because you've all been sitting, you're gonna go on a coffee break, everybody stand up. So this is the interactive part of my presentation. Again, this is just filling. So how many people here identify as a product, and if you identify as a product marketer, stay standing. If you don't, please sit back down. All right, this is good, this is good. Okay, how many people here, and by vote, feel that product marketing is one of the most strategic components in an organization? If you don't, sit down.
It is or should be?
No. Should be is a wholly other question. We all know that answer. Everybody who's standing under that. And I say it's one of, right? Because I think where we sit is the confluence of so many different things in an organization, right? And so if you disagree with this statement, please sit down. Okay, this is great. So Dave, this was our very first conversation this morning. So every single person I know that does product marketing feels they are misunderstood, period. It is absolutely that way. So give each other, no, I'm not gonna say it as a support group. Okay, you can sit down again, thank you so much. But it's true, we are a misunderstood concept, absolutely. And I have struggled with this my entire career. And explaining these things to people, this is my favorite one, actually. Explaining these things to people always becomes a complex topic for me. So what I'm gonna go through right now is a framework that I use to explain to people what we do. This isn't like, so Axel, are you still in the room? Axel had an awesome slide with like all that stuff we do, right? Like that slide with it had like 80 things on it. I love that thing. Oh my God, I love it, because it shows like basically the depth. People can't understand it though if you aren't a product marketer, right? Our days are full, we have a lot of stuff. So this is more of a high level kind of understanding what it is. So I feel when I took a step back and said, okay, why are we misunderstood? Number one, I think product management and product marketing, there's a lot of overlap, and we'll come back to that in a minute. There's this emergence of content marketing, which, you know, I'm a product marketer, so I always kind of just think like, okay, that's me with my writing hat on. And so where does content marketing fit and where does product marketing fit in your organization? Each organization is different, right? Every face looks different, and every face of an organization is gonna look different, so that's really, really key here. And that comes back to this kind of the whole size and stage of a company is radically important as well. And I use it as a key point because what I'm going to talk about right now is my understanding of product marketing, how I communicate this up. Again, let's go back to who I was. I didn't do that because I wanted to like show off who I am. Guys, I am a startup person and I am in tech. That is going to dictate how I think about marketing and how I think about product marketing and how it fits in the overall organization. I can't even imagine giving up pricing. Are you kidding me? No way. But that's the stage of the company I'm in. Right? Depending on where you are and what you are in your org, that's what really dictates who owns what. Historical expectations, if you talk to somebody from Microsoft, they have like these crazy different titles. Product manager, I think, is actually product marketing, right? I think. So like there's this terminology thing too that's like, you know, like we hurt ourselves by calling ourselves the wrong name sometimes. Every industry is different, I kind of spoke to that. And then I feel the most important part about defining product marketing in your organization, either as your team or as an individual, comes back to the people and the experience that are in your team and around it. Because sometimes there's people who are just that great and they're on an adjacent team, and you know what? They should own certain things. I just gave you my kind of, you know, I feel really passionate about pricing. I've given up pricing a couple different times in my career because, man, there was just somebody that really understood it, and they trusted me to be an input into that process, right? And so it just depends ultimately on who you are as an organization. That said, oh no, don't do that. Okay, great. Please work. Okay, that's a redheaded stepchild, I'm sorry, that's the closest I could get. Okay, so what's helped me is this broader definition, right? And so if I could think about what we do as marketers, There's going to be one slide that kind of pulls it all together. That's my tweetable slide. So product marketing is the process of building and delivering a core narrative. There's not a wasted word there. They all mean something. Process to me is, this is never done. What we do is never done. We may create something one week. Like I said, I'm Jim. I changed my buyer persona in 12 days. These things change. We iterate over time. We learn. We gain insight from all the different parts of the organization. It is ultimately definitely a process. What did you call them, Dave? The one-offs, the ask me's, the I need this or whatever. Like these people are like, get this thing done. The Anitas. They just think we're just like this like service org. But there's a lot going on, and I want to talk through that. But it is really about delivering this core narrative. So I want to start there. What we do as marketers, to me at the heart, is really two things. We build a story and we tell a story. We're storytellers. We build a narrative. We go out there and we tell this to the market, or we tell this to our internal stakeholders. Right? And that's pretty much, to me, kind of a summary of what we do. But ultimately, I feel it is the most strategic part of an organization. Right? If we have clearly articulated story, we'll take over markets. Right? The company story, to me, is the company strategy. So this is Ben Horowitz. He's a partner at Andreessen Horowitz. This is a quote of his that was in Forbes magazine, or Forbes online, a couple years ago. You can look up, and Ben's really phenomenal. There's another CEO, his name is Dave McJanet. He's the CEO of a company called HashiCorp that's out in San Francisco. And I the pleasure and the honor of working with this man. But he just fully believed that marketing drives the entire strategy of the organization. And I can't even agree any more than 100%. I wish I could go to 120%, especially in today's markets, especially, well, at least in tech, right? Like in tech, our buyers touch our software before we even talk to them. What is that process? They're on our website. Buyers expect the personal touch and the experience of basically the consumer experience in enterprise B2B. That means they are touching you. They know all about you before you even get to them. And to me, the product marketer is the critical linchpin in that new conversation. Like today, more than ever, we are more important than anything. And so the fact that there's only 100 of us in the room, I expect this whole kind of field and this whole acumen of product marketing to grow over time. There's lots of people talking about startup where the most important part of the organization is product marketing. I think it's kind of a known fact because we can actually reach down, understand what you want to say, and translate it. Because that's ultimately what we are. We're translators, right? If it's English to Italian, well, it's tech to English is what we do, right? And that narrative to me is like the most important part of any company. And I love doing this with small companies. So when we build out a message, I always think about a message as kind of, head, heart, and wallet. Why do people buy? It's really kind of one of three different things. And I feel if we hit organizations or we hit our buyers in the buying process across the why, try, buy process with the right message at the right time, we'll be really effective about actually selling to these people, right? And so, I always start with the head because, that is why people actually get interested in you in the first place, I feel. And that's your audience message. That's like, why do they even need this thing? Right, which is really critical. The second is, and usually people start with the product. They start with the wallet, I think, which I find a big mistake. Like, I talk to a lot of developers, and these developers think this little widget they created is really cool, and they're like, oh my God, everybody's gonna need it, it's gonna be awesome. But they have no idea why they need that thing. Right? And so starting with product in the startup world is basically the biggest mistake they could possibly make. But they can't think about the audience message. Why is somebody thinking about this? And then the lost art to me is the top one. It's the heart. Right? Why are we sitting in this room? Is because we actually all feel like this is a community, right? Dave, why did I like you when I first met you? It was there was a natural kind of personality. Right? And the personality of the company at which you work is critical in that sales process. And this isn't your internal aim high or commit to excellence, the internal hey, that's on your careers page. Right? This is about us why are we in this business? Why do we do this? Right? And so we basically, I build this out, and every company I've done, I have like the layer cake for every single company I've been at. I save them, actually. I have one deck that just goes through these whole things. But we basically develop this stuff and then incorporate it into an overall theme. And so this is my current cake at Cockroach. It kind of sounds weird, now I think of it, but it was like 11:15 last night when I did this one. At the company, let's just start from an audience point of view. What we have is we have a database that evolves with your business. Right? Organizations today are going through the process of moving their applications to the cloud. They're moving these applications to the cloud. They're landing in this new space. They think it's great, but ultimately they have to actually move their database as well. And databases from legacy worlds don't actually migrate to the cloud very well. So what we've done is we've architected a database from the ground up that basically accommodates all these applications in the cloud. Why do people do this? Oh, audience message. They want to modernize. They want to actually move from the old to the new. They have a cloud strategy. Net new, oh, they're cloud people. They just actually want to build new applications in the cloud. And the third one is future data architecture. I'm working on the sentiment of the person being like, oh my God, I need to be in the future. People love the future. They love the modern. 2 companies ago, I was at a company called Hortonworks. Funny enough, the third one was actually just modern data architecture. I just couldn't use it again. I just felt it was kind of cheap. Right? But I got to the heart of what they're doing. And then I say, oh great, yeah, it's distributed SQL. It fits this new world. It has all the abilities of security and reliability that you need. And it's cloud native, right? It's going to work in this new environment you live in. Those are 2 different levels. And then finally, why do they buy from us? Well, our CEO and the founders are just this incredible group of people that came out of Google. They're just experts at this stuff. They're awesome, right? And we're evolved in our approach. Right? In every way that you think about our company, we have it's cool. We have on Fridays, we have something called Flex Friday. You can work on things outside of work. Like it's kind of like a 4-day work week, but I think Fridays is you just catch up. That's evolved, right? And so there's lots of ways, that's not just our database, it kind of aligns with that, but that's us as an organization. Why do people want to work there? Why do they want to buy from these people? Right? And then finally, we are definitely kind of looking forward as opposed to around and back. But I just give that as an example of the one slide about what my company does as an example of kind of how that narrative plays out. And once you have these kind of 9 pieces in place, I like 3s, so 3 layers, 3 across, 3 up. I'll publish this to the salespeople and talk about alignment. Right? Simple, straightforward layer cake that they can actually go to at any time. And if they can memorize 3 things on each level and understand where they're at, they can actually do this matrix. Right? So it's really critical to just gain alignment across the org. Actually helps up the org too to actually help people understand what we do. So product marketing is not just building that story, it's also telling the story. So I like to think of shared frameworks as a critical component of the way that we do our business. I typically will talk about, on top of this narrative, these 4. Use cases kind of translating to the audience message, honestly, the stuff that I just kind of talked about. It's kind of, I just pull it up because I think it's important to talk through. Customer information. How many people think customer information is just building a case study? By raising a hand. Nobody. It isn't. It's ultimately how we actually distribute that thing, right? But I believe product marketing should be in charge of all this product information. We should treat it as a database in Salesforce or wherever you want to do that. That's where I like to do it. And we use it down funnel, right? So into our sales team to teach them how to sell, but we use it up funnel as well, right? To build out case studies and everything we put on, the external web, right? But central collection of that information is really a critical shared framework and a shared function. Competitive, absolutely. We have battle cards that go down funnel. We have, Harvey Ball comparison sheets that go up funnel, right, to show buyers of why. And then personas, which I could talk for like a day on personas. I could talk on a day on all these things are really important, right? And so there's these shared frameworks, and then we use these shared frameworks in lots of different ways, right? We tell a story through external channels, through a bunch of different things. I loved Axel's slide. Again, it had lots of things that we do. But I like to actually tease these things out into the 2 sides when I'm speaking about what we do. Again, this is a general, and I use 1 around my definition of definition because it's just my definition. We all have our own. But there's lots of things we do, right? We typically own the website. We do these competitive case studies. We do programs. We are partnered to demand gen to run programs, right? But our sales plays should actually match our programs. right? And if we tackle that audience message, again, this is where we gain this alignment. We get the audience message right, we can actually use that same thing. Oh, modernization? Oh, well, in demand gen at Cockroach Labs, I have an entire modernization campaign going on because it's how our buyers buy. And by the time people get to an MQL and we're actually having a first meeting with them, we actually understand now, because this campaign is what they responded to, that bottom of funnel and first meeting, I'm telling the salespeople, hit modernization. Right? Because we've run the same programs up the funnel as we're doing down the funnel in our one-to-one conversations as well. So it's like that framework, that critical alignment between the two sides, I feel is just really, really important. And then internally, we talk about these things at length as well. The pitch deck, look at it, that is the main point in which you actually align people in terms of what you do. You own it. Right? Like there's no product management thing in here. This isn't about a product, right? Like I said, this is a bigger layer cake message, right? Where are people coming from? What are their problems? Introduce your product. Why is it of value from? And then talk about competition or whatever that last step is, right? Like it's a pretty simple path through a story that we can all go through, right? But you own it. And we use these things in lots of different ways. I also believe like we are a key piece of the reporting and analytics. Typically, reporting is owned by demand gen or marketing ops. I feel that product marketing is a key piece of that as well. Again, just understanding up funnel and down funnel is really important for me. And then I can't say anymore, like I think pricing is a value conversation. I believe it belongs to product marketing. And so I use basically, I talked a bit, so this is where I built the slides last night. I got ahead of myself. The shared frameworks are really great because it actually creates this up and down funnel alignment. I think it's just really important to think through. So this is my one slide if you want to take a picture. No, it's fine. But if you want to tweet something out, this is kind of the one thing I use to describe what product marketing is to people. It's the simple understanding of what it is, and then look at you tell a story through external channels and internal channels. Okay, so that's me. I'm at James. If you want the slides or they aren't, whatever, just DM me. I'm happy to share anything with anybody. So how does this work when you have a various different organization, right? So okay, content marketing comes in, and they're a different group. Great. Okay, well, you still own a whole bunch of stuff, right? And you're still driving the way customer info is used because you have these frameworks. You're still involved. They aren't off running case studies without information, full information. You're still involved in that sort of thing. So some of these things start to gray out, right? When you have, addition of a strong demand gen resource, I'm happy to give up certain things because there's alignment and there's trust between the two sides of the organization. Once you have, it's great, right? And then finally, there's there's a solid product management. Product management's it's a wholly other beast. And so it's kind of, when I talk up to executives or kind of within the team, like this is the kind of way I talk about it. But, ultimately the pragmatic framework, which I was first introduced to, 20 years now, Dave? Like something like that. I'm kind of aging myself. I'm gray in the beard. I had a pager. I'm that old. The framework works, man. Like this thing works and it helps people. And so when I try to align product management with product marketing, I basically start this thing. I just turn it all gray and say, okay, what are we doing? Like who's doing what here? All right. And so this framework also is a really useful framework to actually help the internal conversation between the two stakeholders. I don't use this typically with executives or kind of the people around us. My higher level framework, it kind of abstracts this stuff out. But product managers get this stuff, right? And so again, and it's just you can actually edit this slide and use I redid it as a table, so it's kind of easy to do. I also customize this. This doesn't even look like there's a lot of new boxes on here from the pragmatic framework though. But thank you to pragmatic for this because it hasn't changed a whole lot in a lot of years, and it actually kind of works. And I think some of the stuff Dave's going to talk about kind of balances out on this. So again, why are we misunderstood? To me, ultimately, every organization is different. It's a different fingerprint across everywhere. And then why does any of this matter that I'm talking to you about other than basically I'm catering to a crowd of product marketers? Right? Like if you guys don't come on, right? It's like my crowd, my people. So ultimately, I find alignment and more importantly, coverage is just super critical. Especially in, like I said, I'm kind of a more startup person. So just helping founders understand that, there's these concepts that you're going to have to do as an organization, and I use the framework to show that to people, they're like, yes, we need that. And so either you're going to hire somebody for product marketing or demand gen or whatever that is, you've got to cover these functions in your organization. Otherwise, something falls. Just doesn't get done. When something doesn't get done in a small emerging company, it fails. Right, so I think number one, it's coverage. Setting the right expectations, it's just critical. Again, how do people measure? You know, I love the question like, hey, what's your success metric for product marketing? Revenue? Revenue? But this is all the stuff we do, right? So another critical piece and how you measure your teams. And then finally, I always navel gaze at the own team and I see what we have, and this kind of gives me a higher level sense of where we're good and where we're bad on teams. When you got a team of 4 to 5 product marketers, each of them doing different things, there's always something that you're kind of looking at. You're like, man, how do we actually improve that piece of the org? And when you're lucky enough to get the head count and you can go out and buy it, you could hire. Understanding kind of the bigger picture, rocks that you can move around. I always feel really, really important. I always come back to the framework to help me understand that. So I found this graphic this morning. It drove me, I'd be like, this is my life. Like I can't handle things that are misaligned. But anyway, I'll step back. So with that, I'll stop talking. I don't know how long I went, Dave, but again, I wasn't able to time this thing out. Thank you, everybody, but I'm happy to take any questions. It's really high-level stuff, though. All right.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Question. You were talking about technology. I believe
So the question is, if you're B2B or B2C, just having people who understand that curriculum, is that important? Absolutely. I think to me, what makes me good, I like what I do. What makes me like what I do is I actually get the tech. And you know what? I was a developer, and I'm an advocate for the developer. I'm like, you guys, what you're doing is really cool. You just need to sell it. So if it's an app, that's like the healthcare app, like Livia, you're into healthcare. It's cool. Like you're into that thing. Like finding your mojo and finding your thing is where you're going to fit very well. And so as a manager, I always look for people that have experience kind of in my field or very, very closely adjacent. I just find it critical. One tangent on that though is I find it a mistake to actually elevate certain people that haven't been through the kind of the process as a junior person to come over from, like a developer turned product marketer. I'm happy I made that transition. It's not always easy. But I think there's traits in people that you can look for that will ultimately make them good product marketers. It's another blog post I wrote. I think a lot about this too. I just believe product marketers need to be passionate. Absolutely. You're selling, you're the spokesperson, you're developing that story. You got to be it's intelligence. I'm sorry, but you guys are all some of the smartest people in your organizations. I don't say that to pander. You get it. You understand what's going on in that product. And that's part of understanding here what it is, right? Because you gotta get it. But I think number one, it's humility. If you can't say you're wrong or you can't listen, you're just not a good product marketer. And sometimes people who come from more technical sides, they're right all the time and they can't listen. We're loose, right? So absolutely, yeah. So sorry.
I'm a student at Northwestern and a passionate storyteller. Thank you for advocating. So we have a product management class at Northwestern, and from what I recall from there is that we were in personas and create a story as well. How often do you think the point of view of a product marketer conflicts with that of a PM? And how difficult is it to come on the common page? I believe as enthusiasts and passionate storytellers, we tend to dive deeper into emotions, assuming that PMs don't change. How do you come to a consensus? Is there a conflict of interest?
Yeah, that is a really wonderful question. So where does product management drop off and product marketing begin for a core narrative? And honestly, they are input. In my opinion, and the organizations I work, they are input. Because I think ultimately the layer cake, like they don't understand like the stuff about the company, the heart, like that's an emotional reason somebody buys, right? Like the audience message, very rarely do you get a product manager who really gets like that. Like they get the user story, like how they're using the product. They don't get the buyer journey. And the buyer journey is somewhat emotional. And product marketers are emotional people. We get it. Like that's where the passion comes out. And so I think that's where I always have conversations between product management and myself around kind of where we kind of let up and take over. It's partnership though. There's not like one. Yeah, I guess the reason I like startups is because it ends up being a partnership across the board. Isn't like I'm not fighting internally for resources for anybody ever. We're just there working together, and they know what I can give. And so if you come to the table in any organization with a framework, they'll love you. So Nate Stewart, who runs product management at Cockroach Labs, he's like, Jim, you started, it's 2 weeks, like, how's this work? I used the pragmatic marketing framework, and I was like, okay, what do you own? Like, how do we do this? Right? You come with frameworks because you actually understand like this is how people do things. It helps tremendously. There is no like black and white answer on that. And I love Northwestern, so.
You mentioned earlier, the framework and is if the partnership is with demand, what does a good demand? How do you?
Oh my God, what does a good demand gen team look like? I just think GSD, like they are the ultimate, like they keep me like on point. Like my demand gen team right now manages me through Asana. Like it's great. Like they project manage me. It's awesome. Like I'm so happy because otherwise I'm just like, it's narrative. It's great, man. Like no, man. That's got to be used in a webinar, and I need an abstract. And I was like, I'm a service to them, I think, but it's a partnership, right? Because I'm also helping them think through like, okay, great. This campaign is modernization. What does that look like? They own it, and typically they have some good experience in the field, so they know what the buyer looks like. Which I think is always really good. But like the number one trait for me for demand generation is they are just, it's GSD. It gets stuff done to me. But there's no answer. It depends on your org, I think, so.
Following up on the collaboration, how much does it matter in a startup or in a large? I've seen it under CMO, I've seen it under CPO. Sometimes it's really product. Does it matter?
Yeah, so the question is, where should product marketing report to? Is it CPO? Is it CMO? I'm paraphrasing. And does it matter? I think it matters because ultimately I think it's going to end up forcing kind of what you are aligned with. And it comes back to the redheaded stepchild slide. Like it just depends on your organization what's right and the people that are around you. I know that's a super like lame answer, but it ends up being kind of like it's organizational. A lot of times it's historical. My personal preference, again, the reason I like startups is I can actually get in and say, this is what you want for long-term, longevity of your organization. It is absolutely a marketing role, in my opinion. Like, it's not even a question. Like, because we are basically the translator between the buyer journey and the product, like, and how salespeople sell it. We own enablement. What's sales enablement org and the sales thing? Like, okay, great. Like, set meetings, right? We own that story. We drive basically the strategy of the organization. Again, that's kind of the smaller company thing, though. So, am I done, Dave? Is that the time?
I'm grabbing the hook.
All right, great. All right, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.